This is just a video to show you some tools and techniques that you might be able to use with your laser cutting project, depending on what you've chosen to do. So I'm just going to run through some basics just to remind you of how to use some of those different tools we learnt earlier on in this semester, so that you can take your idea and turn it into a vector file for the laser cutter. So what you need to do if you open up Adobe Illustrator, which is what I'm in now, you need to set up a new document. So depending on what you're making, you might choose either portrait or landscape. So you need to go into File and New, and you need to go to the Print tab, and you can make the choice whether it's A4, A3, whatever you need to. But what I would suggest is to make it the size of the actual laser cutting piece that we can put in the machine. That way you can see how big it is in relation to that in terms of its scale. So what I'll get you to do over here, I want you to change it to millimeters, and I want you to pop in your width as 600 and your height at 300. Once that's done, you need to change your color mode to RGB because that's the color mode that the laser cutter works on, and then go create. And that will load up down the bottom here for me. So what you've got here now is the biggest size that the laser cutter can cut in terms of a piece of timber or a sheet of acrylic, depending on what you've chosen to do. So what I can do now, I'm going to show you a couple of the tools depending on what you're going to do. If you need to use the text tool, so you want a word or something like that, you can just click on the T tool here. Simply click on the page. Don't draw a text box, just simple one click, and then you can write what you need to write, and you can highlight and change your font, your size, everything like that up the top here. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, and you can move that with your selection tool up the top here. So I can move that around. So that's one way. When I'm back, I will show you how to actually turn it into an outline, but that's the gist of your text tool. If you're wanting to create shapes, so for example, if this is a sign, if I want it to be a rectangle, I can click on this button here. That's my rectangle tool. But if I hold that down, it actually gives me a range of other tools that I can use too. So if I want a circle or an oval, I would use the ellipse tool. The polygon tool, you can type in how many sides you want. So if you want triangles, hexagons, that type of thing. But I'm going to stick with actually I might go rounded rectangle. So then I can draw around like that. Now it's automatically filled. So if that happens, just go up to the top here. I want no fill, but I want an outline. So I need to click on the second box here. And you can see I can actually make that thicker if I wanted to, so depending on my project. So you've got the text tool and the shape tool there. Another tool that you might want to use with your shapes is your shape builder tool. So if you're wanting to build your own shapes, you can draw those. And if I draw a circle like that, what you need to do is select both of those shapes, and I've done that by just drawing a box around both of them. Your shape builder tool is here, so if you click on that, if you actually draw a little line where you want to cut, that then forms a shape for you. So that's another process. The other thing I want to remind you of again is your pen tool. So if you would like to either free draw something of your choice, you can use your pen tool that way. You can also use your pen tool for tracing. So if you wanted to do a slotted animal, for example, I found an image off the internet of a slot system. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually place that image So you could place an image that you found off the internet. It might be a photograph. It doesn't have to be an outline that you want to use as a basis for your design, much like we did with your vinyl sticker. So I'm going to go down and I'll show you what I've found. So what I've got here, so I've just gone file and place, found the file that I want. It's a bit too big for my page, so I need to scale it down, holding down shift so that it stays in proportion, and just dragging that down until I get it to a shape that I want, that will fit on my sheet. So as you can see, this is the slotting of a whole heap of different animals. So what you can do, sometimes depending on your image, it might be clear enough for you to do a simple image trace. So remembering back to when we did that with your sticker, you can try that. So I'll see if that works. So as you can see, that worked pretty well. So I just did that on black and white logo. Once I've done that, I can expand it, and then I can right click and ungroup it, and now I can actually grab pieces of that out. So as you can see, there's one here that I can bring back as well, and then there's one here as well. So that's one way to do it. If yours doesn't work that simply, because it might be pixelated, therefore it can't pick up the lines, what you can actually do is use your pen tool to trace. So if I was to want to trace this one here, I can use my pen tool and I can actually go around and form my shapes. If that live trace doesn't work or I'm not happy with the result of it, whatever that might be. So as you can see, it's starting to cut off my bit here. So if that happens, just flip that little arrow there so that you've got no fill and you've got an outline on instead. And that will fix up that issue there. So all I'm doing is clicking and dragging to get curves. I can go back and fix these up as I need to as I go around, but clicking and dragging will allow you to get those curves, and for any straight lines you just do a simple click. So you need to make sure that you join those up, and that's a way to use the pen tool to trace your design. So that's the main techniques that I think will be useful for you for your design. At this stage, you are just designing your piece, and then we will look at the settings and the colors that we need to use for the laser cutter.